Good evening and welcome to the work session for the Town of Surf City. At this time, if you would please stand, I'm going to ask on Councilman Fowler to lead us in our invocation.
Let's bow our heads, please. Our Father, we're thankful to be able to gather here and celebrate the spirit of Christmas. Father, we also thank you for the many blessings you've brought into our lives. And we're thankful to be able to gather to perform the business of our town, Father. We're thankful to see all the guests we have attending tonight's meeting. Father, we ask you to continue to bless us, bless this town, and bless its citizens for the betterment of our community. We ask you to do all these things in your most precious name. Amen.
At this time, if Mayor Pro-Tem Don Helms would lead us in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'm going to call upon Amy Combs to come forward with a rezoning request.
Madam Mayor, if we could have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Yes.
I make a motion we adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're on.
Good afternoon.
The first item on the agenda tonight is the conditional district rezoning request by Applewood Trace. You've got about 150 pages in your packet regarding this. This is the third time that I've been in front of you with this. So I'm just going to give really a brief history and kind of a little bit about what the changes are between the last time we were here in April 4th of 2023 and what's in your packet tonight. So just the brief background, the property that we're looking at is phases 3 through 7 of the original Turtle Creek development that was approved in 2006. Of those 422 residential units, 72 have already been built out, with leaving 350 remaining units that were planned to be built, and that was a mixture of single-family, duplex, and multifamily units. When we originally brought this to you, the proposed project had 714 units, which included apartments and single-family homes. It had an on-site wastewater treatment system that was going to be managed by the HOA. Since that time, we've had additional meetings and discussions with the developer, and the developer has come back with a new plan that has 399 homes in it versus the 714 that we originally had. The proposed project will have 181 single-family homes and 218 duplex townhomes. They will provide a clubhouse and pool area for the new residents. They will retain existing wetlands and provide open space, which will be 104.85 acres of the 195 acres will remain open space. They will also propose a boat RV storage area. The town will now be responsible for the treatment of the wastewater in this project. From a vehicular standpoint, the original trip generation showed 4,657 cars a day. The revised running for 400 homes shows 3,772 units, which is a reduction of 1,000 from the previously proposed submittal. I received a email from DOT late this afternoon. The TIA will be updated per the request of the public to include a Saturday peak, but as a part of that request, the actual trip generation for the proposed project will be used. So we had originally met with the applicant and requested that the TIA remain the same because the higher trip generation could potentially warrant higher improvements. But based on the request from the public to the Department of Transportation, and since we follow the Department of Transportation's regulations on the TIA, they will be doing a limited scope TIA reduction. So that is one of the changes that will be coming out of here, and they will discuss that a little bit tonight. But overall, the reduction is that the apartments have been completely removed from the public or from the project. The connection that we discussed to US 17 will not be made. The connection will go through Man Hollow. There is a document in your packet from the Davy Group which discusses the Corps' stance on mitigation or on avoidance first, minimization and avoidance. So the Corps will look at the Man Hollow as a avoidance of wetland impacts, which will allow a similar level of service to that development. So they would not issue those additional impacts needed to build a bridge to 17. Again, the request tonight is for the site plan that is in your packet, which shows the areas and the different densities. Again, as a part of the TRC process, if this is approved, we will go through it and make sure that it meets all of our ordinances as far as road sizing, road width, so that fire trucks can get in, and all of that, as we have discussed in the past. This is step one, is the rezoning, and after the rezoning, we'll go through all the engineering and the permitting through the different agencies. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Mr. Collier and his team are here to provide a brief presentation on the project as well.
I have one quick question that you mentioned. The cars, you said the original was 40-something hundred cars?
So if you look in your packet, the original TIA with the trip generation based on 2006 was 3,199. When we came in with the first proposal, which included the apartments, the additional was 4,657. The new trip generation has reduced that down to 3,772. So if you want to compare, the original request would have had a remaining approximately 2,500, and it will be increasing to 3,772 versus 4,657. And also, trip generation has changed a little bit since 2006, so some of that is just the difference in the way that the trips are generated, not necessarily a reflection of the number of houses changing. That makes sense.
Apologize. What was the 2006 number?
The 2006 number for the overall development was 3,199. If you subtract out the 72 homes, it came down to 2,496.
I have a question, Amy. And I hope this is not pushing the cart way before the horse, but on completion of this neighborhood, are we still looking at having traffic go through the original Turtle Creek development as it sits now?
Yes, sir. This would, so originally in 2006, the development was approved as an entire development that had the two needed fire access points, one of those being on 17 and one of those being on 210. This would complete that original plan and provide those accesses. Right now, we have a number of homes that exceeds the fire threshold.
Okay, but that opens it up to vehicle traffic for everybody and anybody, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so did we ever look at, or did they ever look at making that an emergency access road only and having the occupants of that community enter and exit off of 17?
So we do not allow gates within the town of Surf City based on a Chapter 16-6, which would not allow us to gate it. Also, our zoning ordinances require interconnectivity in Appendix A, and actually for this subdivision, Appendix B, Chapter 7 requires that interconnectivity. So from my standpoint, I would have to make a recommendation that meets those two
Change
those two ordinances,
to change
or the
those.
ordinances would have to be changed for me to be able to make that recommendation.
And that's not a possibility, or it is a possibility.
It is a possibility to make that change. The planning department, nor do I believe the fire department, would make that recommendation based on the overall benefit of interconnectivity within the town and having a secondary access in case of an emergency. Right now, if there's an accident at the front of Turtle Creek, you wouldn't be able to get in or out of Turtle Creek until that accident is cleared. This would give them a secondary access. We also worked with the developer to try to create a route that was not a straight through route with some stop signs and turns on it to decrease those cut through traffic.
I just think that there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot more traffic going through that neighborhood, and I would like to see, basically, cut and dry. I'd like to see it just become an emergency access road as opposed to just opening up the vehicle traffic for anybody that lives there to take a cut through, or people to cut through from 17 through. I know this is throwing a wrench in.
That's not something that's against our ordinance. That ordinance would have to be changed before that could be done.
Okay, but that is a possibility to change, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's...
Well, the pending application would be governed by our existing ordinances.
Okay.
Arguably, the applicant could choose if a subsequent enacted ordinance was enacted, but for purposes of today, it's the pending ordinance.
Okay. Just throwing it out.
Excuse me, it's the existing ordinance. Sorry.
I know what you meant. Because I know that's a big concern to the residents of that neighborhood, to not have all those vehicles going through there, you know. as well as safety for anybody that's in that neighborhood.
So that neighborhood was originally a plan to be a 420, or a 422 unit neighborhood anyway. By right, they can build 350 homes with the zoning that they have. I think that it's gonna develop. It's just whether or not we've looked at it responsibly. And I feel like with all of the curves, the way that the streets are laid out, we've tried to do that. Looking at some of the other subdivisions in town where we have done that has worked very well. And it's been the internal subdivision that uses the cut through and not the public, because it is not a straight, well-designed route for through traffic.
I don't mean public off of 17, I'm talking about the public that's going to be in this new neighborhood, going through that one to get to town easier, get to the beach easier. I mean, I know it would be an inconvenience to those people, but at the same point, it's an inconvenience to the people that already live in Turtle Creek now. And I'm just throwing it out there, this is just the way I feel, I'm sorry, but...
Amy, excuse me, John, you gave all your facts.
Yes, sir.
On
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
sorry.
So you gave all your facts. I need a motion to open this public hearing.
I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion to open public hearing. So at this time, you can stay very close, Amy. Yeah?
I got my staff
Okay.
right here.
So at this time, I'm going to call on anyone that would like to come up and speak during this public hearing. You can come up and state your name and your address, please.
I have a sign-up sheet.
You have a sign-up sheet? She's going to call your name out by sign-up sheet, and then you can come back.
That's fine.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mayor Batts, councilmen, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Torrey. I live at 115 Leland Way in Turtle Creek, and I'm here to make some comments regarding the present application. I think in all fairness, you have to look at this compared to the original application. The original application called for no rentals, only private homes and townhouses, which, to my way of thinking, is a big asset for the people in Turtle Creek. We will be affected as far as the value of our homes concerning the present application. Originally, as I stated, there were no rentals or private homes. There was going to be a direct access to Route 17, along with access from Loggerhead Boulevard onto 210. Now we're told that we can't get access to Route 17 because there's opposition from the Corps of Engineers. Whether that's true or not, I really don't know. But the original proposal had that as a main source of ingress and egress into the present application area. The other application area is Loggerhead Boulevard, which is a very complicated, curvy area that comes in along a circle in Turtle Creek, bends 2 or 3 different ways, goes over a bridge, and then snakes to 210. A very complicated area. Now, apparently the North Carolina Department of Transportation had some serious problems with this development and the access to it. It's difficult at the present time, whether it's winter or summer, to get in and out of Turtle Creek. It's literally playing Russian roulette. You sit there and then you hit the gas and you hope you're going to make it. All right? Now, that's with the present number of homes. With the extensive number of homes that are going to be added, it's going to be a lot more complicated. It's going to be a very difficult position. Now, we're left with no solution to the problem because we're told by the builder that they can't cooperate with the Department of Transportation in acquiring land in order to get a more accurate ingress and egress into the communities. In other words, we don't have an intersection like this. We have an intersection that snakes all over the place. So they recommended possibly taking land by eminent domain and making a much better intersection. Is my time up?
Yes, sir.
And I just, couple of other, just briefly, another minute. As far as our problem in Turtle Creek, we have a flooding problem, okay? We have sinkholes and we have a high water table. Mr. Logan, who's the present application, is going to give us a prize. He's going to give us 200,000 gallons a day to be pumped back into our area. It's going to be a disaster. We've asked for a hydrology report from day one, from the first day out in the schoolyard. We've asked for this report. We've never received it, and we never received a report showing that the system that they have at the present time is going to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minor.
Hi, Tom Miner, 7608 Gramercy Park Road, Kingsville, Maryland. I actually work for DCNC, which was the entity that contracted Turtle Creek LLC. And when I was working with them, there was an availability of 12 lots in Edgecombe to purchase. My family and I purchased those 12 lots, and we annexed into the town with the understanding that at that time the town would accept dedication of the streets. The north or west access to Route 17 from Applewood Trace goes through Edgecombe, but that development does not have a maintenance agreement or an HOA association. So there's no maintenance vehicle for that road that leaves out from Applewood Trace to Man Hollow Church Road. That's my only concern. I'm in favor of the subdivision. I have no objection to that. I'm glad that the town has assumed the sanitary sewer for the project. I guess my question is the town going to accept dedication of the streets in Applewood Trace? Because I know that was a question earlier. And if they accept that dedication of the streets in Applewood Trace, will they accept dedication of the streets in Edgecombe Estates? Because that's why we annexed into the town back in 2007. That's my only concern, is the maintenance of that road and the fact that we own 12 lots that mostly front on that road. So that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon Udler.
Hi, my name is Shannon Udler. I live at 206 Loggerhead Boulevard in Turtle Creek. We moved from Wisconsin in August of 2017. And because I work from home, we could have chosen anywhere in the United States to live, and we chose the beautiful town of Surf City. We chose Surf City because of the schools and because of the small town feel. My husband and I have one daughter, Adelaide, who's 10, and in 5th grade at Surf City Elementary. We are blissfully happy in Turtle Creek. It's a neighborhood where children play outside every day. They ride their bikes throughout the neighborhood, and you know where they are by the house that has a bunch of bikes in the front yard. The children play baseball and football in our traffic circle on Loggerhead Boulevard, and they play basketball in driveways on Loggerhead as well. We have a bike parade on the 4th of July. The kids ride their decorated bikes behind a Surf City fire truck through the neighborhood. We do Christmas caroling. We have Halloween and Easter events in our streets. My husband is a local musician, and we have parties in our driveway where the neighborhood gathers. Just yesterday, we had a successful toy drive for Toys for Tots. In addition, our clubhouse pool and playground are also located on Loggerhead Boulevard. So there's a lot of bike and foot traffic to and from the clubhouse daily. We also have a pond behind our clubhouse that many people use for fishing. So Loggerhead is the heart of Turtle Creek and a very busy street for foot and bike traffic. My primary ask today is that you not approve rezoning for Applewood Trace as at this time in order to further review the proposal and evaluate the impacts on the town, schools, and neighborhoods. The voters were very vocal during the last election cycle that they are concerned about development and evaluations need to be thoughtfully completed. I'm also asking that you not allow Loggerhead Boulevard to be used as an entrance or exit for Applewood Trace in the event that the rezoning is eventually approved, and instead have them create an entrance directly onto 210. I would hate for our quiet neighborhood to be destroyed and our children's safety put at risk by traffic using Loggerhead as a cut-through from Highway 17. As it is, we can't turn left to go into Surf City at many times during the summer, and additional traffic would make that exponentially worse. If Loggerhead Boulevard is used as an access to Applewood Trace, I would like to know how the council will be ensuring the safety of our children. As I mentioned, our children play on our streets every day of the year. Traffic humps and decreased speed limits would be minimum requirements, but the increased traffic will pose a significant safety risk to our children and alter the way they live. In summary, I'm asking that you pause to review the impacts of Applewood Trace and listen to the feedback that voters provided during the recent election cycle regarding development. And please do not destroy the heart of Turtle Creek by making it a thoroughfare from Highway 17. Thank you.
Fabiana?
Good evening. My name is Fabiana Seri, and I live at 101 East Stockton Place in the villages of Turtle Creek. I moved here 8 years ago with my husband and child, who at the time was entering the 8th grade. I conducted my research prior to moving, and the reason why I chose this area was due to the great ratings of our local schools. I have always believed in the power of public school education and wanted my child to have the best opportunity to gain a great education so that she can be successful in her adult life. The issue I'm finding is that the homes and rental units Applewood Trace is proposing to build for families will negatively impact our overburdened Surf City Elementary and Middle School. There is a shortage of teachers nationwide, statewide, and countywide. When there aren't enough teachers nor classrooms to hold our students, we sacrifice our children's learning and education. Without quality education, the students of Surf City will not gain all the important reading, writing, math, science, and critical thinking skills needed to gain the employment required to sustain themselves as adults, let alone their families. They will not be competitive enough to attend trade schools, community colleges, or four-year universities. They will not become the next generation of successful entrepreneurs and business owners in our town. With a lack of quality education due to overcrowding, we will find higher truancy and dropout rates, and young adults will find themselves dependent upon their parents into older adulthood. They will not be purchasing homes, purchasing businesses, or adding new businesses to our town. Due to this, they will be unable to add to this town's tax revenue, which again will hurt our schools. For those of us who currently have children in college, we will not have our children returning to this area and starting their young families if they see that our town's educational system is not top quality. This is not an issue that should be left to the Pender County Board of Education alone. This is all of our responsibility, and as responsible citizens, we must place children and education first. We should not be rushed into allowing housing developers into our area without proper and responsible infrastructure. Housing developers build and leave. Our children will stay and will suffer the consequences of overburdened teachers, lack of adequate space and classrooms, and a compromised education system. I implore you to visit Surf City Elementary and Surf City Middle School. Please take the time to walk around the school. Visit and speak with the teachers, the support staff, the administration, the cafeteria workers, custodians, and bus drivers. They will tell you the truth about what they are experiencing firsthand. Please delay this vote until you have spoken to the schools and we can responsibly come together to plan the enrichment of our children, their education, and the future of this town. Thank you.
Charles Bolton.
Good evening. I'm Charles Polton. I live at 101 East Stockton Place, the village of Turtle Creek. When my family received orders here at Camp Lejeune 8 years ago, my wife, Fabiana, at once identified the top school district. That was Topsail, right? We bought a home here. My daughter graduated high school here, and upon graduating high school, she was accepted to NC State, Auburn, and the University of Tennessee. She is currently a junior at NC State pursuing a STEM degree. She is at State pursuing a STEM degree due to the opportunity this town provided her. A beautiful, safe city with a top-tier education system. The majority of families choose Surf City for its school system. In addition, once again, it's beautiful and safe. Today's school system is overcrowded, and the students to teacher ratio increases each year. I know this town is not responsible for the manning of personnel or the creation of new educational facilities, but we can mitigate the rapid increase of the current classrooms by not rezoning and embracing high-density housing. People choose Surf City because, as I previously mentioned, it's a beautiful, safe city with a great education system. That education system is now in jeopardy. By rapidly increasing the amount of new students due to high-density housing, we are setting our town up for failure. The rapid increase of overcrowding our classroom due to high-density housing development projects will lead to an increase of discipline problems within the classroom due to teachers not being able to effectively control their classrooms due to overcrowding. The amount of distractions from discipline issues will then lead to more and more students becoming distracted and ultimately impeding their students' ability to learn and lower test grades. What will soon follow is an increase of students who do not feel safe or seen. Currently, our students in our classrooms are taking part in active after-school activities and are overall positive contributors to our city. That will change if we greenlight rezoning. Our schools' ability to produce a high-end education will begin to degrade, and our school systems begin to lose their effectiveness. And once that's gone, we're not getting it back. You can look at other cities. You don't just drop to the bottom and rise back up. That's gone once we lose that. Youth with no future who end up living with their parents' basements with no jobs will lead an increase in vagrancy, substance abuse, which will then lead to small crime and eventually build an environment where gangs and illegal drug operations will move in and take advantage of our youth. Eventually, we'll no longer have safe, beautiful city. Our youth are the key to our future, this town's future. We cannot sacrifice our school systems for financial gains, whether it's land development from outsiders from out of town or building key infrastructure within our city. We may not be able to control how Pender County school boards address the overcrowding, but we can mitigate overcrowding in our schools by not rezoning the land to enable high-density housing. Our schools are a bid for success here in our town of Surf City. We must grow responsibly. Thank you for your time.
John Fahey.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I'm happy to be here tonight. My name is John Fahey. I'm at 470 Lansdowne Circle. And I'm going to speak for the kids, because that's what I'm here for, is just to speak for the kids. And I appreciate other parents that have spoken. I'm a grandparent of 3 children in the schools and a former superintendent, and I thank Mr. Fowler for his service as an educator and Mr. Helms for his service as a council member. You have a pretty tough decision in front of you, and I know there's a lot of things that are related to this that relate to traffic and to water, and there's a lot of issues that are still unresolved in our opinion. I speak for the children. I was a former superintendent of schools. I worked in education for over 30 years, and I really care about the kids more than I care about anything. The traffic's not good. There's all those other things that you're going to hear about that aren't good. But who speaks for the kids except for the parents? And we had a couple parents, and now I'm going to be a grandparent. I have a daughter that substitutes in the schools, and I have 3 grandkids in Surf City schools. And the stories I hear are sad. They're extremely sad. And if you haven't heard them, you need to talk to some people. And I know we're talking about this development, but it could be any development that comes down the road. Certainly, Magnolia Reserve's not full yet, and there's going to be a lot of parents in there, and the same with Waterside. Those 2 haven't filled up, apartments haven't been filled up, and now we're adding at least 400 more homes. Living in Turtle Creek, I expect that there's going to be growth. I can't say when or how. I know what it was when we moved in, and I know it's changed a lot. Let me tell you what my daughter said. My daughter is a college graduate. I have 2 daughters that are college graduates. They both substitute now because they know there's such a need in the schools. They volunteer, they tutor. My daughter, I tried to convince her to be a teacher because I was teaching teachers when I taught at one university, and she wouldn't be a teacher because she got a degree in business. Well, as a substitute teacher, she's in the schools all the time. And I always say, why don't you become a teacher? And she said, I don't want to be unhappy for the rest of my life. There's no happy teachers here. They're sad, they're upset, they're quitting. Parents are pulling their kids out of schools. I've heard things such as at the high school, I talked to kids there, they can't even get class to class. Teachers don't have classrooms, they share carts. Kids are parking at the shopping center across the street from the high school and trying to cross 17 to get to high school. We're at, I think, a moment of crisis, and I know that the county runs the schools. I know you don't have anything to do with that. I understand that because I interviewed to be in Pender. But I do know this, we can avoid some more population if we're smart about what we do. And that's all I have to say.
Cheryl?
My name is Cheryl Campbell, and I'm at 107 East Stockton Place in Turtle Creek. I am a 7-month resident of Surf City, and I vacationed here probably for 7 years and said when I retired I wanted to live here. I think with what I have seen in the changes in the past 2 years, I'm beginning to think maybe I didn't make such a great decision. The destruction of the green space, the incredible development speed here is not a desirable thing to be retired at. So I am asking the council to take a step back, look at your development decisions, make sure your infrastructure is in place, make sure that the children are taken care of like you've heard many times today. The infrastructure right now in Turtle Creek is old, it's aged, it's aging. When I moved here, there was a huge sinkhole at Loggerhead, and I said, what's up with that? Because I'm from Charlotte. The city took care of those things immediately. I'm surprised that maybe Surf City hadn't been sued because of damage. And I was told by my neighbors, oh, that's a sore topic of discussion. I said, why? Why would it be? And it took, let me tell you, 7 months, and it's still not fixed. It's finally filled in. Now I guess we'll wait another 6 months for the pavement of that hole. So with additional traffic on Loggerhead, with the cut through, even the residents from Apple Trace coming through, I think this is a dangerous decision to make without studying further. We already heard, I've walked my dog every day, and I'm amazed at the children that are playing out in the street. Football, yes. Bicycles, yes. I don't know what would happen, how that could still continue with additional traffic on Loggerhead and cutting through if that's allowed. I don't know what happened to the stoplight that was supposed to be at Highway 17, and if that is still in this current plan, because it is very dangerous. And a lot of times I turn right just so I don't think I'm going to get hit if I turn left. And I would never turn left on my bicycle. I always go down, turn around so I can come back and try to get on the road safely. So I really urge the council to take, especially the new council members. I'm not even quite sure how you've had such time to review such an intense proposal. But I urge you to take a step back, look at these things, look at the neighborhood that we currently live in, and see if the tax revenue, because that's all the city's going to get because of the wash of the incentive fees and the tap fees is a wash. See if that tax revenue is really worth this change to Turtle Creek. Thank you.
Dale Eisman.
Hello again. I'm not sure if I'm the last one or not, but on behalf of myself and everyone in Turtle Creek, I want to thank you for your attention today and throughout the consideration of Applewood Trace. I'm going to speak both about the rezoning request and about the special agreement that I understand is going to be the second part of today's proceeding. You've already heard more than you would like about our concerns. Oh, first of all, I'm sorry. I want to make a special thank you to Amy Kimes and to David Price for their willingness to answer my questions and to explain the details of this proposal and how you all are handling it. You've already heard probably more than you would like about our concerns at Turtle Creek. Traffic, wastewater disposal, crowding in the schools. Let me try to summarize briefly. We know that you cannot tell NCDOT what to do about traffic, but you can refuse to make it worse. Applewood Trace would do that and make our neighborhood less safe. That's a big reason, sufficient reason to vote no. If you're determined to proceed, you can act to limit construction-related traffic on Loggerhead and insist the developer take additional steps to mitigate it. We've talked about a gate at the Loggerhead entrance to Applewood, and I understand there's an ordinance about that. And we understand the fire department has reservations about that. But there are gated communities all over North Carolina, including some here in Pender County. And available technologies allow police and fire to open them with a smartphone app or merely by turning on their sirens. Before acting, why not ask your staff to look into those technologies and report back to you on how they're working in other communities, and negotiate with the developer on changing the agreement to permit it. You can pause here to do a little more research on the potential side effects of locating a wastewater disposal field in the middle of a residential neighborhood. At 210,000 gallons a day, wastewater flowing into Applewood Trace will fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 3 days. That is 10 times a month, 121 times a year. That water eventually will make its way to Becky's Creek and the Intercoastal Waterway. I know we dispose of water safely in this way in lots of places, including in Surf City, but we have not tried it in the middle of a residential area, where even a modest thunderstorm floods yards and streets. Residents need to see some verification that disposal can be done safely in the middle of a neighborhood with 399 homes and hundreds more nearby. We know you can't solve the school crowding problem, but you can refuse to add to it. You can put pressure on the school board and Pender County commissioners through appearances at their meeting and speaking out during their election campaigns. 2 commissioners and 2 board members are up for re-election next year. You folks have some memory about how that works. And you can invite the new superintendent and school principals to attend meetings like this and publicly address questions about the impact of Applewood and other developments on our schools. You also can insist that if Applewood proceeds, it be developed as a 55-plus community, as we've suggested. Applewood stands to add 200-plus school-aged children to the Surf City population, and you've already heard plenty about how the schools are filled to overflowing. Mr. Logan has dismissed that suggestion out of hand. Finally, what's the hurry here? A new council will be sworn in a few weeks. This plan has been in the works for months and wasn't released publicly until just over a week ago, and just 10 days after Election Day. Its provisions call for a vote that would put into effect as soon as this hearing is concluded. It will take years to execute. I know you heard a lot during the campaign about the voters' concern with the direction and pace of development in Surf City. You don't have to be cynical, and I confess I am. to wonder if the schedule has been engineered to minimize scrutiny by council members who will have to live with it, and by the public at large. Again, thank you for your attention. Let me ask all the Turtle Creek residents in attendance to stand. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak concerning the rezoning request for Turtle Creek, Applewood Trace?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My name is Sam Frank. I'm with the applicant. Forgive me, it's not clear to me whether you want us to speak during the public hearing or if you intended for the applicant to present after the public hearing, so I'm here to ask that question.
During the public hearing's fine. I have one question regardless.
Okay.
And I can wait, Mayor. I'll defer to you as chair of the meeting.
You can ask your question.
Mr. Frank, this is a site-specific conditional zoning request, correct?
It is.
I cannot locate in the agenda packet a identifier for this particular site plan. I know it's been, excuse my voice, it's been revised a few times. So maybe Mr. Collier, before we finish up, I'd like to put an identifier on that, please.
You're referring to the condition that ties the site plan to the approval?
The actual site plan itself, 399
Got it.
units, et cetera.
Yep. And Ms. Combs may be able to tell us, do you know a page number in the packet? Yeah. Perhaps she can give her a chance to work on that. While Mr. Collier was going to say next is we'd like for Mr. Collier to have an opportunity to present the case, if that's acceptable to you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely.
After he does so, I'd like to offer a couple comments in response to the things we heard in the public hearing as well. Thank you.
Council, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I'm Richard Collier with McKim & Creed, 243 North Front Street in Wilmington, North Carolina. This evening we want to talk about Applewood Trace adjacent to Turtle Creek and what has changed from the beginning of when we started putting plans together for Applewood Trace when it was 714 units and now at 399 units. So on the screen before you now is just generally an overview of where Applewood Trace is, and I think we're all quite familiar with that. And I'll try not to belabor things that Ms. Kimes may have already addressed. Next slide, please. No problem. The property is about 195 acres. It's 194.97 acres, and it is currently zoned PUD under the Villages at Applewood Trace. The phases 3 through 7, I think, are the actual numbers. We have proposed a conditional zoning with PUD zoning underlying, which is what Mr. Eads was speaking about, to have a site-specific plan for us to design against. The existing site itself has wetlands on site. There are roughly 52 acres of wetland on site, some of which are jurisdictional and 2 small pockets that are non-jurisdictional. At this time, we are not intent on doing any impacts to any of the wetlands. We use impacts for roadway crossings that were under the original plan that have already been permitted by the Corps, and there are not any other additional wetland impacts that are being proposed. Our master plan is shown on the screen now. There are 3 different areas, residential units. There is one area that's 81 units adjacent to Turtle Creek that has 81 single-family units in it. The center part is the 218, which is 1 and 2 family units, built for rent, cottages. There's a lot of different words for it, but that would be the area. If there is rentals, it would be in that area. We also have adjacent to that on the kind of the northeastern side, the area where there was a wastewater treatment plant at one time. That has been removed now and is an RV and boat storage area for for the folks in the Applewood Trace. It may also be for the folks that are in Turtle Creek. As I understand, originally there was some intent to have an RV boat storage. I don't know the answer to that one yet, but I also know that it's large enough that it may accommodate that. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen itself are the densities and what the site design is. Our density is of just over 2 units per acre. Comparing that to an R15 or density similar to that, 3 units per acre is generally considered to be a very low density. So I'm not sure where we are becoming a high density project, but in terms of the numbers and the density itself, we certainly do not qualify as a high density development. We are in compliance with your 2023 land use plan, and we're in compliance with the 2005 land use plan as well. What's changed between the two? It's predominantly the numbers of units. I mean, that's where the biggest part comes in. As you can see on the left, the 2022 plan that had 714 units, it was comprised of 100 single family, it was comprised of 314 build for rent and 300 apartments, which totaled the 714, and it gave a 3.66 dwelling unit per acre. Today we're looking at 181 single family units and 218 build for rent or cottage style units. That gives us that density of just over 2 dwelling units per acre. The apartments have been completely removed from our proposal. They were removed late last year, I think, in one of the subsequent revisions. What the other thing that has changed dramatically is the wastewater system itself. On the 2022 plan, we were proposing to provide an on-site wastewater treatment plant and disposal area. Since that time, we've met with Mr. Price and the town many times, and we've talked through the town being able to use the waste disposal system that's on this property. We need part of it, and the town needs part of it. So we would build a force main from your treatment plant to the disposal fields. We would build the pump stations and those types of things, and that's going to be discussed a lot more in the utility agreement following this item. But so for what we're discussing, there is no more wastewater treatment plant, but there still remains a disposal site. Traffic itself, yes, we have 2 points of ingress and egress, Highway 210 and Loggerhead Road, and then also at Highway 17 and Man Hollow Church Road. Based on the DOT's approval, which, as Ms. Kimes alluded to earlier, was on our original 714 units, we have an RCI, so a reduced conflict intersection, proposed to install at at Man Hollow Church Road and Highway 17. So that would be a left, two different left turns, U-turn type movements. It would not be a direct access out of Man Hollow Church Road other than to the right. Then there is just east of that or north of that on 17, there's an existing U-turn median crossing now where we're to extend the U-turn movement legs so that there's more storage in the U-turn bulbs themselves. There is a right turn lane at Highway 210 and 17 that has been put in place. And then I think, as several have alluded to tonight, DOT made a comment that they would like to see a signal at Loggerhead and 210. The signal at Loggerhead and 210 means you realign Loggerhead Boulevard by an adjacent parcel and put a signal that meets Becky's Creek Road. So that was, in the end, that has not been a situation that has come to fruition in any way. That is much more, in terms of construction and imposing upon Turtle Creek, that is certainly a much more imposing solution. We have said that if the DOT and the town wanted a signal at 210 and Loggerhead where it is today, then we would certainly entertain that. So at this point, we're working through the modifications to the traffic study. We are adding, as requested, the Saturday peak times, and they're being evaluated, and we are reducing the numbers from the 714 to the 399 to rework the traffic study in its condition as it's proposed now. The plan on the right, or the picture on the right-hand side, is the actual Saturday counts. So what the Saturday counts show is there's about an 8% increase in trips based upon what the PM peaks were. So the highest counts that the traffic study shows, which are the PM counts, there's about an 8% increase in that, and they all are showing it as if it's a westbound movement. The biggest change is a westbound movement on Highway 210. And I do have Caroline Cheeves, who's our traffic engineer. She's here and can answer questions in a little bit if we have more details on traffic. Oops, sorry, wrong direction. So our phasing plan would be to construct the first 81 lots adjacent to Turtle Creek initially. We do realize that we need to build out, or at least build out an emergency access of the main road, the Loggerhead extension that would run up through the site and then connect back to 17. That has to be there from a fire perspective. We've also said that we would gate for construction, gate both ends so that folks can't come in and out of the construction site. And it would be locked so that nobody's bringing things in or out. We've said we would sign it so that the heavier equipment comes in and out off 17, not off Loggerhead, and that the smaller vehicles, the private trucks or something similar to that, they could use Loggerhead because they are much more light duty. We've also put in an agreement or at least a condition that we would assess Loggerhead today when we start construction through testing and video evidence. When at each stage of our phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we would reassess the same, and if there are improvements that are required, we would make those improvements. So I think we're trying to make the efforts that have been asked of the applicant in terms of Loggerhead and maintaining things. In terms of safety, as we've talked about from a cut-through traffic perspective, following the road itself, there's probably 4 different right turns and 1 left turn and 2 roundabouts to go through for someone to cut through between 17 and Highway 210. I'm not going to tell you it wouldn't happen. It will happen. It will happen by the folks that live in Turtle Creek. It will happen by the folks that live in Applewood Trace, and it may happen by Google Earth, but they won't do it but once or twice for visitors because it's just not a straight through route. They would much rather turn and head 210 even if they are slowed down slightly in traffic. So looking at phase 1, blow up of the 81 lots adjacent to Turtle Creek, and as you can see, there's a minimum of 25 feet is the first kind of the yellow dash line around the entire project in terms of buffering. There's another 25 feet to those first lots that are adjacent to the pond that was mentioned earlier, and as far as where the clubhouse is, there is nothing directly adjacent to it by the clubhouse. There is one lot, at least one lot removed before you would get to the new 81 lots. Moving into the 218 units, the 1 and 2 family homes, that is a very similar design that it has been throughout. The central area, the green area, is the area of the disposal area that has been mentioned. That is an area larger than the disposal area for multiple reasons. One is we wanted to have some recreation area in there as well, and they need to have access and be able to do any maintenance that's necessary for that. The purple area on the eastern side or the right side of the picture is the area that has been reserved for an RV and boat storage, and then as you see, there's a darker line on the north side of the kind of the light purple area. That is an above ground walkway that would connect from Applewood Trace over to the elementary school. So there would be some way for school-aged kids, whether they're in Turtle Creek or in Applewood Trace, if they were walking or riding bikes or however, they could take that route that runs directly into the rear of the school. Last phase, the third phase, is the 100 lots that are adjacent to Edgecombe Estates. So that they're in this configuration. And in terms of the streets themselves, I think there was a discussion on Applewood Trace. There is an access and utility agreement that we are required to provide utilities to the lots in Applewood Trace, and we have to rebuild the roads. So we've got to bring the roads to a standard, and that standard we've agreed to the town is the state's standard. I don't know if, is Edgecombe Drive, is it in the town or is it in the state? It's in the town.
Edgecombe is in town,
Manhollow Estate. So Edgecombe would be a town, could be a town street if accepted. And I presume the same way with if the cul-de-sacs if it were built to town standards. Is that accurate or inaccurate? We could request. Right. However, a manhole would be upgraded in any way that the DOT asks us to. This is the route that will be discussed earlier from a treatment plant, from your treatment plant on the far north. We would route a force main down Highway 50 and then over to Shepherd's Road, and then come west on Shepherd's Road and then down through the school site, bore under the wetlands, and then make the connection at the disposal area that I showed you a little bit earlier. So what things that our Applewood Trace, what are we doing that's kind of helping? And, we are limiting density. We are down under 3 units an acre. Realistically, we're at 2 units an acre. We are in compliance with your 2023 future land use plan, and we did comply with the 2005 land use plan. The gating during construction to prevent folks going in or out, and limiting the access of the larger vehicles during construction. Making sure we have that to protect the citizens of Turtle Creek and the remaining citizens of the town. We are minimizing cut-through traffic with the design of the road. I know that's hard for everyone to believe in certain ways, but even the curvy road that was mentioned of in Turtle Creek now of Loggerhead, it does slow traffic down. I mean, that's what the intent of those things are, is to slow it down and to minimize that impact of cars speeding along the road. I'm not a big fan of speed bumps. I certainly, if someone told me I have to put them in, we would put them in, but I don't think that I would be better off to give people turns and roundabouts and narrowing streets to slow cars down rather than put speed bumps in. The off-site traffic improvements, we're certainly going to abide by what NCDOT says without any questions. We do have the boat storage. We are providing the additional wastewater disposal that the town would be able to get use out of, and that would be something they can have use out of immediately, because we are bound to have all of that completed and installed before the first CO of any homes in our project. So it's not something that's waiting down the road to get built. It has to be built first. So we're consistent. We are providing wastewater approval. The city staff has recommended approval. The planning board recommended approval, and we certainly would respectfully ask for the council's approval as well. And if there are any questions for me, I'm here to answer, and I think Mr. Frank wanted to come and say a few words too.
Mr. Collier, and maybe I'm missing it, but I'm looking at the 10 proposed conditions that staff recommends approval if these 10 conditions are added. You mentioned during your presentation, and I've heard this discussion before, conditions regarding gating off and protecting the public during construction, all that. I don't see those in these 10 conditions. Is that something staff wants?
Staff is fine with that.
Making them conditions or not?
It's written in my narrative that staff has, so we can certainly take the language from that and add it in as a condition. We do not have any issues at all with that, and I can get that language out for you if you need.
To the extent we may need it later, I'd like for you
Understood.
to do that.
Yes, sir.
And I'm looking at the March 23rd, back to my earlier question, conditional zoning submittal. That has the maximum 399 residential units, 181 single-family lots, 218 duplex townhomes. That's the submittal, the site-specific plan. Maybe this is a question for Mr. Frank. Okay.
Sam said it would be for him, so.
Yeah, that's written in the plan, but yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I mean, as long as we know what we're talking about, because I know that there was an original submission, negotiation, resubmission. I just want to make sure.
The March plan is the latest site plan, and it has one overall plan, and then there are 4 different enlargement sheets behind that would show the specifics on each of the individual lots and streets.
And I'll ask Mr. Frank about the applicant's position on incorporating that site-specific plan as a condition to any approval the council may be inclined.
Okay. Any other questions for me before
Fowler.
Sam comes up? Or okay, thank you.
And just to reiterate, Richard Collier is obviously our land planner. He's nearby and available to answer questions. We also have our environmental engineer here with us, Wes Fryer, and also our traffic engineer. And so if you have questions for our experts, please don't hesitate to ask. To offer clarification, the pause in this process for approval was to work through the details of the next step, the development agreement, and the details of how that wastewater treatment facility could be incorporated, wastewater treatment field could be incorporated. And so the site plan itself has not changed since what was under consideration in April and was proposed in March. And yes, to answer your question, Mr. Eads, the applicant is certainly willing to, and it would be appropriate to, incorporate a condition to reference and include that site plan in the zoning approval.
Which, and just so we're on the same page in the public and council, meaning any approval would be approving the construction depicted on that site plan.
Correct. We're bound by the site plan as part of the zoning. So the land that's shown as undeveloped or unimproved on the site plan has to stay that way, short of coming back here and asking you to rezone the land and change the site plan.
Even if it's sold?
Of course, absolutely. It runs with...
I think I know the answer. I just want to make... Conditional zoning is relatively new to North Carolina, so. Go ahead, Mr. Frank, sorry.
Now, Mayor, with your consent, I'd like to just respond briefly to some of the things that were raised during the public hearing. I don't want to reiterate or be redundant with anything Mr. Collier presented, but I did have a couple points that I wanted to raise in rebuttal. First, the development that's proposed to you today that we call Applewood Trace is the same as phases 3 through 7 of Turtle Creek. This is just the continuation of the development that was already planned. Everyone who spoke to you except Mr. Reiner is a resident in phases 1 and 2 of this development. They're here opposing the continued and finished development of this project. And the reason that that's happening is because the passage of time. There's been some 15 plus years since the first 2 phases of this development were completed. And what that means is you've got a public road, Loggerhead Boulevard, that serves phases 1 and 2 of the development, and also always has and always will serve this future development property. But over that road being stubbed out to the development property for future interconnectivity. In the meantime, people have grown accustomed to it. They've grown accustomed to it being a relatively large, relatively untraveled road. And you heard that from citizens today. They explained to you how they use it for recreational purposes, how they enjoy the relatively low level of traffic that's on that road stub, because over that 15 plus years, it's been exclusively theirs. That wasn't the intent at the beginning. That's not the intent now. The road serves this future development, 195 acres, whether that land is developed pursuant by right to its current zoning or whether it's developed pursuant to the zoning that we're proposing to you today. If we were to establish an additional point of connection to Route 17, as was suggested, we would only be creating a more direct route for people to cut through this neighborhood to get from Route 17 to the beach. If we were to do that, we would also impact wetlands. The way that we've proposed this revised plan, there are no additional impacts to wetlands. Mr. Collier has designed this in a very careful manner to make sure that we're able to say that. That would not be true if we were to establish an additional point of direct connection to Route 17. One of the folks who spoke with you this evening, no, actually 2, indicated that rental homes have a negative impact on the value of adjoining homes that are available for ownership. And while I fundamentally disagree with that assertion, what's important in this context is that zoning doesn't dictate ownership versus rental. Zoning dictates the residential use, the nature of the use of the property, but it's the market that dictates whether homes are rented or sold. And therefore, nothing about your decision tonight has any impact on whether the homes that are built on this 194 acres in the future will be rented or will be sold. As Mr. Collier identified, the developer has accepted responsibility for all damage that's done to the public road in connection with construction activies. Gone above and beyond, agreed to do a very detailed video-based assessment of the condition of the road before any construction equipment is on it, and to evaluate the condition of it at multiple phases along the way of development, and to take full responsibility for repairing any damage that's done during the construction process. Finally, just briefly, with regard to the public infrastructure that's proposed in connection with this, one of the conditions requires the developer to significantly improve the town's public infrastructure. We've taken that financial burden and responsibility in connection with the...
Interrupt you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
What road are you going to take video of to make sure?
Loggerhead Boulevard.
So you are going to be bringing construction vehicles down Loggerhead?
No, I'm saying that to the extent that there is any damage during the process, there's a condition that's incorporated.
I'm just asking, what if there's not going to be any construction vehicles, what would be the damage?
Yeah, we asked that question too.
Well, that's what I'm asking to you.
Yeah, no, and so we've taken on the burden of, to the extent there's, notwithstanding our efforts to direct construction traffic out Man Hollow, to the extent there is any damage to Loggerhead Boulevard, we're putting that on our shoulders.
Thank you.
Yep. With regard to Man Hollow, I'm not, Mr. Collier mentioned this, but because it was in Mr. Reiner's comments, let me go a little bit further on that. Man Hollow is currently unimproved. We have an easement over it to use it for both access and to install utility lines. Together with that comes an obligation for the owner of this future development tract to pave that road and to install the utility lines on it. Now, we can't provide the utility service to the folks who own homes along that road, the road that connects to Man Hollow, but we can and will install the dry pipes to allow for future connection there, and we will improve that road. That's fundamentally part of the deal that goes with that easement.
I got a question. Since that
Yes, sir.
Edgecombe, where you're talking about your easement's at,
Yes, sir.
is already in the town of Surf City, are you going to meet the standards for the roads that Surf City requires, so that could be annexed later on into the town?
Yes, sir. By the terms of the easement, we're required to do so with regard to construction. With regard to whether or not the town accepts it, that's beyond our control. We can only offer it for your dedicated for your use, and if you take it, you take it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All up on that road, I don't know that I'm familiar with the standards for what our roads are. I haven't been here long enough, I guess. Do we know what those widths would be and the depths and the underlayment? I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but...
So our ordinances reference NCDOT standards and specifications with a couple of little caveats. One, we require 2 inches of asphalt with 9 inches of stone, where their typical is about 1.5 inches of asphalt with 6 inches of stone. And then we also do mention in their Appendix D of the fire code. So if there's a fire hydrant on there, we might have to have a little bit of a conversation. But overall, it's NCDOT standards.
What is there a width? Is there a standard width?
20 feet is your standard asphalt width. I believe that's a 60-foot dedicated right-of-way, which would allow for that.
20 feet, and in the rest of our criteria that we consider standard with the layer of asphalt and the sub-layer exceeds. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
what I'm understanding? That
Yes, sir.
exceeds the DOT standard? Okay, thank you.
A question's not about road, but
Yes,
you
ma'am.
did say as far as on land that is not used for construction, how many acres is not used for construction that is usable?
How much is retained as open space or green space? I'd like to invite our land planner to answer that, and he can do so more accurately than I can.
I'm not your land planner, I've got 104.85, is that right?
That's correct.
Is left?
What's the question?
That includes the wetlands. So there are 55 acres of wetlands and 49 acres of open space in round numbers.
That 49 acres of open space, is that what we're spraying on?
No,
No.
no, it's,
So it's 49 acres that could potentially be developed in the future.
there's only one parcel that could be developed in the future, and that is, it's adjacent to the, if I can get back to my slideshow, I'll show you. So it is,
But to be clear,
it is undeveloped land.
It's shown on the site plan, which is incorporated in the zoning approval, as unimproved land. And so the only way any landowner in the future can develop that property is to come back before this board and ask for another rezoning. With this zoning approval, that land cannot be improved. I'd also, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd just like to comment on that land there. Depending on how your rezoning goes and the meeting after this one, that could be our repair area. If it gets rezoned and the development agreement happens, that would be reserved and dedicated to the town.
Yeah, I was just making,
and
you would be willing to turn that over to the town for repair area?
Yeah, that's the game plan. Yeah. And I also wanted to clarify, you referred to spraying upon. The proposal for disposal of that treated water from the system is subsurface. So there's no spraying. It pumps in below the surface and then is infiltrated into the ground below surface.
So we're kind of talking about green space. I feel like this kind of falls under that. The path that we were talking about, or it was mentioned from Applewood to the school.
Yes, sir.
Is that a proposed idea or is that a confirmed idea?
It's a condition in the zoning. We are, if the zoning is approved or when the zoning is approved, we're compelled to build it.
All right, so that doesn't affect any wetlands. There's no potential hang-ups about, hey, we can't do this. We wanted to do it, but now the Corps says pump the brakes.
We can put in a walkway bridge that's up, as long as it has a 3 feet clear below it so that it can have the sunlight through it, and it's got, the boards have slight specs in them. So yes, we've committed to do that unless we are absolutely told no. And if we are, we've got to come tell the town that. So it's not something that we are trying to get out of doing.
That was one of the conditions.
I would ask Wes if there was any. No, I don't anticipate any issues, but I can't say 100%.
Is there anyone else?
No, I still got questions.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't want to
Keep it
interrupt
coming.
anybody else. All right, you mentioned earlier about the construction vehicles on Access 17, heavy construction. We're going to keep them off Loggerhead. I don't even know if this is something that would be possible. And the reason I say that, I don't do what you all do as far as development, so I don't know what your contracts with or what your understanding are with your tradesmen on what you're allowed to do. Would you consider, or would it be a possibility to have the tradesmen, even with the lighter weight vehicles, commit to using 17 as their entrance rather than Loggerhead? So I think that would give some relief to some of the families if this passes, with kids playing in baseball in the circle.
Sure. So today, Loggerhead Boulevard's a public road. Can't put a fence or a gate in the middle of it, right? But our land, the 194 acres, is still private land that doesn't have a dedicated public right-of-way on it. So one thing that we can do is physically block access from the then pending phase of our land going south. We can also provide specific direction to our site contractor and other contractors to utilize the access from Edgecombe and Man Hollow to reach 17. We can also all rely on the common sense conclusion that that is the better access for folks who are coming from 17 to reach the site to do work on the site. Now, is it conceivable that with phasing of the development that somewhere along the way somebody in an F-150 is going to approach from the south? I don't know that we can entirely prevent that. But what we can do is what I just described. We can commit to create the physical barriers on our land that hadn't been dedicated as a public right-of-way yet. We can commit to direct all of our contractors and for them to direct all of their subs and tradesmen to utilize the primary access. And we can rely on the good common sense conclusion that that's the better route. That ought to significantly reduce, if not completely curtail, construction traffic on the public road that is Loggerhead Boulevard.
I'm thinking you're saying, yeah, you would try to make that happen.
We want that to happen.
Yeah, I do too.
Remember, we're on the hook to repair whatever gets damaged on that road.
I understand.
And, so, and today, Edgecombe is an unfinished road, and so in the natural sequence of things, that's the right place for us to bring any heavy equipment through.
I was talking about, I knew the heavy equipment. I felt like you were on top of that. I was talking about the lighter equipment, even though it's lighter and it's, yeah, you know, you're not going to be able to control your trademans or whatever, but I was just curious if there was something you could do to discourage loggerhead for that. And it sounds like you got a plan for that.
Yes, sir. And willing to agree to a condition that says as much.
Yes, sir.
Can you stay right there if you don't mind? Amy, can you come up here? I got a question for you, real quick, because I've got several. Tell me what the threshold is for a second access in a development.
That is a good question for the fire. I believe it's 30 homes, but I would defer.
So let me ask you a question. Is that a law, or is that a law, or is that a policy, or it's a law?
That is a
when did that
law.
law go into effect?
So that is a part of the North Carolina Fire Code.
When did that go into effect?
We took over.
What, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 10 years?
Probably at least 10.
Okay, so Dogwood Lakes,
Correct.
for 15 years, had one access. One access. So what was the difference?
It's, and Madam Mayor, if I may, so when properties get developed, we'll use Dogwood Lakes as an example. You've provided the singular access point, and then the development is required to stub for future connection. And that is what happened with Dogwood Lakes. That's what happened with Turtle Creek, is that Appendix D will say that you have to stub that road to form that.
And we create Appendix D, right?
You adopted Appendix D.
We adopt Appendix D, but we can change Appendix D too if it doesn't meet to the standards. Is that correct?
You do not. Appendix D would be a state code that the local jurisdiction has the choice to adopt. And
if we don't adopt it, what happens?
You have already adopted it.
But if we, okay.
If you remove it from adoption, then you would be forced to look at that, and do you want to incorporate certain elements of Appendix D and just put those within your subdivision code or your fire code or wherever appropriate it would be located. You know, Appendix D talks about cul-de-sac widths and things of that nature.
So, and understand my question here, and which creates a question for every development as we go. So I live in a development with, how many homes are in Dogwood Lakes? 200 homes? 287 homes, whatever it is. So I live in a development where there's been one access into Dogwood Lakes off of 17 since I moved there. So it's, okay, forever. So I think what you all are doing is fantastic. I think you've done a great job on everything. However, I don't know why you just can't go on and off of Man Hollow and be done with it. Doesn't make sense to me. You understand? I'm talking the logical side of things. I'm just telling you, it doesn't make sense to me. That's all. So that's why, you know, my concern is for the safety of our citizens, 100%. So if you take, for example, your 3,772 cars a day, you take that. 4th of July, how many cars come onto the island for the 4th of July? Real quick, all you experts, all the experts here, can you raise your hand for me? All you experts, he brought all the experts. Where are you at? Can you stand up for me real quick? Any other experts here? Any of you live here? Or any of you residents here? I'm not being facetious at all, please. Do you live here? So for me to add 4,000 cars onto 210, or 3,700 cars on 210, okay, doesn't make sense to me. Because I know what an extra 3,000 cars does on the 4th of July in Surf City. So I couldn't imagine on 210 an extra 3,700 cars per day. Go ahead, I'm sorry. You understand all the things I'm thinking about here, because mine is health, safety, and welfare of our community. That's my first, okay? Love what you're doing, but I'm telling you what I'm looking out for.
So from my standpoint on the traffic impact analysis, the 3,700 cars are being distributed between the two access points now. A good portion of those are going to be working in Jacksonville or Wilmington, and they're going to be going out 17, so they're never going to see 210. If you do away with the 210, you've now added all the traffic that was coming to the town of Surf City, making a left turn on US 17 onto NC 210, which is a much more dangerous intersection due to the grade issues there.
100%.
You're also going to decrease all the time in that signal, because every time you make a left turn and change the signal timing, that decreases by the most significant impact. So you're going to negatively degrade. You're also going to add more traffic at each of those points on a road that's going to increase the potential for accidents. You want to distribute the traffic to decrease those accident
I
points.
agree, but the expert says that with 16 roundabouts, 34 curves, and over the hollow, no one's going to use that anyway.
The people that live in there are going to use it. It's not going to be...
They said they're not going to really come through that direction. They wouldn't come through there technically. They would want to get out on 7. That's what I think you...
That's not what he said about...
You didn't say that most... You said most people in that development would not come through Turtle Creek,
What
correct?
I said was cut-through traffic. It eliminates cut-through. And I said the folks that will use it are the folks that live in Turtle Creek and the folks that live in New Applewood Trace. Google Maps may have it as a route.
So 3,700 cars is what we're talking about, not an added to...
But again, as Ms. Combs was just telling you, 3,700 cars is distributed throughout the two. There's 60% going out 17 and 40% going out the other way. So it is not 3,700 cars on 210, and that's what you're implying, and that's what they imply.
I'm not implying, sir.
No,
So
you
let me
did
finish.
imply.
No, actually, I'm not the one trying to get this approved, so if you'd let me finish, please.
Go right ahead.
Okay? What I was saying to you is, if there's 3,700 cars and they want to go to the beach on Saturday, they ain't going up to Jacksonville. They're coming across Loggerhead. That's all I'm saying. Okay? All I'm trying to do is, I've commended you. I think you guys have done a fantastic job. Okay? I like what you're doing. I'm pro all y'all. I have a problem with the safety of my community and my citizens. That's why I'm here. Okay? I want you to do this, but I don't want you to do it through there. That's where I'm at, okay? And I think you have gone over and beyond to do the things you want to do, okay? But no one is addressing what I'm saying, okay? And it is factual that the traffic there will be a nightmare. No one can deny that here. Yes, I'm
I do
sorry.
want to say one little thing, Jeremy. On the 3,700 trips, so a trip is each enter or exit, right? So when you look at the trip generation, it's assuming for single-family residents that you take about 9 trips a day. So in your question, that would mean that I go to the beach and come back 4 times during the day. So trip generation was something when I first started doing the TIAs that didn't really make a lot of sense. It was like, oh my goodness, here's a big number. There's a ton of traffic on the road. I don't think the public necessarily always understands that. So I want you don't, like at my house, for example, I leave, I come to work in the morning. My child gets home. I go home, I get her, we come back to basketball practice, and then we come home. That's 4 trips right there. My husband goes to work. That's 6 trips. So like on a Saturday, I'm not going to go to the beach 4 times. I'm probably not going to go at all because I'm probably going to go during the week because I live here. But, I'm going to go run an errand out to Jacksonville or something. So that 3,700, in all honesty, you've got 400 houses in there, right? So maybe you have, if everybody takes 2 cars to the beach, you have 800 trips there and 800 trips back.
It's an extreme. And Amy, I consider you the second smartest person that works for the town besides Kyle, okay? So,
But I do think that those numbers are very scary, and you look at them and you're like, I don't understand this, so I just wanted to put it in context a little bit better.
And it's kind of weird because I think if we take anybody in this room, anybody lives in a cul-de-sac or a dead end, for example, any of us, the natural human instinct, and you were to leave and say, I'm going to take that dead end of that cul-de-sac and I'm going to put an extension to somewhere from that so people can get through, every person in this road, no matter who you are, would be irritated about that. If we went to Sally Eden's and said at the end of 9th Street, or wherever the end of the street is, we're going to put a bridge, 4th Street, at the end of her road, over the intercoastal so people can get out, she's going to be pissed.
Miss Sally would say thank you for buying her house.
No, yes, right, she would say no. But you understand what I'm saying. These are the concerns. And our job as council members is to talk about this with you all and work this through, because at the end of the day, the safety, health, and welfare of my citizens is the most important. And I also believe that you buy something, you have the right to build what you want to build on it, but we have to come to some common ground on how to make that work. That's where we're at.
Absolutely. If I may, Councilman Shugarts, I'd like to respond.
Yes, please.
Both to the last thing that you just said and then also to a couple of questions you asked me earlier that I didn't get the chance to speak to you yet. First, absolutely, a cooperative and evolutionary process. That's why we're still talking about the same land here 18 months later. And I'm proud of the work that we've done with the staff at the town to come to a conclusion that makes sense for all. You know, we've gone from a scenario where we had to build a wastewater treatment plant just to support any development, which meant a higher density of development than you really wanted to see, to a solution that's far more attractive both for us and for the town. It's also much more similar to what's currently permitted to be built there. And so you asked why we can't just put a gate in the middle of the public road that extends from Man Hollow to 210 through new development plus Turtle Creek. And there's a couple answers to that question. Amy shared two of them with you already. Your code doesn't allow us to do that if we wanted to. But from a broader perspective, this is also part of a cohesive development. It's difficult because of what I mentioned earlier. The passage of time makes it feel like these are two completely separate things. They're not. This is the continuation of and the completion of the development that started as Turtle Creek. And just just from a philosophical standpoint, it makes sense that the residents in those first couple phases would be able to exit the community to the north via Man Hollow if they wanted to. And it makes sense that the residents in the new section, in the new phases 3 through 7, would also be able to exit 210 if they were inclined to. That public road that passes through the neighborhood, that interconnectivity that's required by the code, is also objectively desirable. The other thing that I would mention, and consistent with what I just said, for your consideration is, this isn't a zoning proposal to say, can we go build a couple of houses on this property? This is a zoning proposal to say, we'd like to go build 399 houses instead of 350, which is what's permitted there by right today. And so, of course, the land's vacant today. Once the houses are built on it, there's going to be more cars on the public road. But we're not here to ask, can we go build any houses? We're here to suggest that this solution with 399 homes and the commitment of the developer to take these additional steps, accept these additional conditions, build this significant amount of public infrastructure for the benefit of the town, along with 399 homes, is a better scenario, both for us and for you, than what's currently permitted by right today.
I appreciate it. And by the way, I wasn't giving you a hard time, okay? Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Thank you.
I got a follow-up question on the by right thing. I want to make sure I understand this, and this may be for Amy, I'm not sure. All right, this by right scenario with the 350 homes, is that because it's currently zoned that if somebody put together a site plan, would we be having these conversations, or does that just go to staff and there will be 350 homes?
There is a site plan associated with the current PD zoning, and that contemplated 422 homes for the entire development. 72 of those homes have been built. That's what we know as phases 1 and 2 in Turtle Creek, and that leaves the remaining 350. So to the extent we...
I think that plan is no longer in effect though, right? I'm saying if somebody new come in and said, I want to build 350 houses on this other place, when you say by right, does that just mean it goes through staff because it's already zoned to be done that way, or would it still be this big meeting?
I'm going to let Amy answer your question now.
Thank you. So it's zoned a PUD. So once we zone it as a PUD, we have a site plan that's tied to it. It's kind of like the conditional district. It's zoned that, and that's what it stays until it's either built out or we have another rezoning request. When we typically say by right, we mean like you can build R10. So we have certain criteria in there. You have this blank piece of land, and the lots have to be 10,000 square feet. That's their minimum lot size. So now you figure out how to put it on there. We have no control over that. We don't require open space. It's just, here's your blank piece of paper. Then he's going to bring in his new subdivision. The TRC is going to make sure it meets all of the rules and regulations, and then we're going to come to you by approval. You really can't not approve it because it meets all the regulations.
That's the way it's zoned now.
The way that it's zoned now is a PUD, which has a site plan tied to it and allows for 350 additional homes.
And just so those of us who don't know, PUD stands for Planned Unit Development, and it's tied to a site plan. So that's been approved. And how many homes would be allowed? If Mr. Frank and his folks weren't here today, I think
350 additional homes could go in there if they followed that site plan.
Without jumping through any of these hoops.
Yes, sir.
It's also, just to follow up on your question, if you were to throw the PD zoning out the window and zone the land R15, very low-density residential, that zoning would permit a greater number of housing units than what we're proposing today.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. If Applewood Trace decided, you know what, we're done with this, and they pack out and they sell it to somebody else, they can come in and build 350 houses based on the zoning of whatever the criteria is right now, and then they bring it to us to approve it. They don't bring us to have any input. Is that?
I don't think we bring it to you at all. I think we take a preliminary subdivision plan to staff, and it's approved at the staff level. But yes, that's correct.
I got two more questions, and we're going to wrap this, Jesse, up for me anyway. But these are things that's just they're weighing on my mind. I want to know. Has there been any discussion, or was there ever any other alternate route to 210 to access Applewood other than Loggerhead?
We evaluated possibilities and couldn't find, just based on the land that we own and what's available to us, a viable option.
Okay, thank you. My last thing, and I don't know which plan it's on, but there was a picture we pulled up a while ago that showed the Phase 1 81 homes. Can we pull that up? And then it's basically a traffic question. All right, we talked about, yes, sir, that's it. We talked about, or you guys have talked about, trying to reduce the flow and control traffic and this, that, and the other with, and I'm with you, I'm not a big speed bump guy either. But this main road coming from the higher dense area, coming straight down into the Loggerhead area, these two T intersections, well, I guess one's a T, and what are both T intersections? That just looks like a straight path. Yes, sir. And then back up, that just looks like a straight path to roll all the way down.
Yes, sir, it is.
Is that stop signs or anything? To me, and I'm looking at it on a piece of paper. I'm not out there seeing it as a practical application. Is that the best way to reduce the speed of the traffic coming through that's getting ready to tie into Loggerhead?
So where the cul-de-sac and the four-way intersection is, that would be stop controlled. So they would have stop signs on that one.
Would that be? Would you predict that's a four-way stop?
I suspect it would be probably a four-way stop there, just for the consideration of what you're asking.
Yes, sir. And I know the other. Well, I guess the other one would be.
The other one would just be stop control on the offset street. Okay. Yes.
All right. That was my last question.
And one other thing that I didn't mention earlier, and hopefully this works. So we are providing, if I may.
I guess the reason I asked that is it seems like one meeting we were in, we talked about roundabouts reducing the speed because you had to slow down for the roundabout. It keeps it flowing, but you got to slow. Then when I saw that, I was like, well, man, I don't see any of these roundabouts they were talking about.
So once you come through here, you hit this circle, so that roundabout there.
Yes, sir.
It comes through. This has on-street parking on both sides, so you start to feel narrow, like a downtown type street. Then you got to make this right, and then that's the intersection we're talking about. That we have four-way stop to it, so all of that has different breaks as it goes along the street. And then the other piece that we've done is, and this is the staff asked us to make sure we did this, was stub the street out from the roundabout to this adjacent property. So if it ever develops, then there is another way that these folks can go out. It's nothing that's going to be done today because we don't have control of that land, but it is a way that would give it another access out if that land develops.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Timeline, best case scenario, when do you think you get to CO on the first house that you can move somebody in?
Well, we've got some sewer infrastructure to build.
I know, I understand that, so that's why I was asking.
I mean, 5 years?
Before the first house is occupied?
4 to 5 years before you got the first CO out there would be my best guess. That's the best case scenario.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Where is Loggerhead right now on the map?
The image on the screen now is the center of the. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Turtle Creek is right there, where your finger is? Okay. Okay, so where Turtle Creek is right now, before you would enter into, I'm assuming that it would continue as Loggerhead into Applewood Trace. So where that line meets, that imaginary line right now, yep, you're saying 5 years before that road. Okay, so it'd be 5 years before we could potentially see traffic. Would you be willing to say that there would be no traffic from Turtle Creek into Applewood Trace for the next 5 years?
On our side of the property, we can block that. Loggerhead Road to its stub is a public right-of-way today. I can't stop.
Stub, yes.
I can't stop somebody from driving over that public road and stopping at the fence and walking around the corner, just like I can't do that today. But I can tell you that from our perspective, we can block the 2B road until it's done with construction and prevent construction traffic from coming south through there.
On which phase? This phase right here that's beside Turtle
first
Creek.
phase.
That's your first phase?
Yes, ma'am.
That's where you want to start first. Would you be willing to go ahead and do your entrance down Man Hollow Church Road and let all your traffic, construction traffic, all traffic, enter phase 1?
We have to do that. We've got to build upgrade Man Hollow, upgrade Edgecombe, and all the way through from the fire perspective.
Are you willing to leave that stubbed on your side,
Not connected?
not connected,
Until phase 1 is complete.
until your phase 1 is complete?
And when I say complete, I mean horizontal complete, so people can start building houses.
Right.
Yes, but no construction traffic, heavy traffic.
That's exactly what we've agreed.
Not even light traffic. Electricians, plumbers. I mean, she's what I think you're saying
Well, I
there
think he
is just
talked about
close
that,
off.
but I mean, it's hard to control them. But I think he said that, my understanding is you were going to say, look, guys, don't bring your rump down Loggerhead, come to Man Hollow, but we're going to block it off so they don't have a choice until we're getting ready to get a CO.
What I'm saying is if it's blocked off, they're not going to be able to get there anyway. They don't
That's what he was saying.
If
He
you
could
don't
control them
open the
until then.
road up, they can't get there anyway.
Right.
That's correct.
Correct?
That is a correct statement.
Okay.
However, I'll ask your chief or the fire guy back there if that is going to be a permissible thing for us or not. And that's the hard thing, is we understand it, that we need to have that access for fire safety.
Okay, but let me ask you a question, okay, because this keeps hitting my head. If we can block that off for construction traffic, and the chief says we cannot block it off construction traffic, but we can sort of limit the amount of traffic, again, I'm going back and throw something at me if I'm wrong, why can't we just block it off permanently and let fire and police have access to it? If we can block it off for construction, light construction traffic, if you can block it off for them, you're blocking it off virtually to everybody. You're blocking it off to a citizen of Turtle Creek that wants to just drive his car down there and check out what's going on. If it's blocked off to them, I mean, I know there's the ordinance and there's all that, but I mean...
So during most of the horizontal construction that they're talking about, there's not many flammables out. I mean, there's some equipment that can burn, but we don't have a lot of wood out there that is combustible. So a lot of times what we look at is once those combustible materials start coming onto site, it is a different animal than when it's just laying pipe and those kinds of things.
I understand that. I'm thinking...
And the other thing is, when we block it off, people are sleeping there at night, and if I have a heart attack in the middle of the night, I want them there as quick as possible.
Oh, yeah, to come through Turtle Creek. I'm talking about...
Right, so once people start living there...
We're talking about after CO of phase 1.
CO means that people are living there, right? Or are you saying acceptance of final plat?
Up until that point.
So up until final
Until they
plat...
sell the first house and the Jones family moves in, up until that point, there shouldn't be any access from Turtle Creek down that road.
I mean, from
But again, if you have a construction accident, you need to get an ambulance there. I understand that. So maybe it's not a permanent block. It's a block where our fire department can get to it.
You can look at some things like, when you're going from an active construction site to a roadway, maybe not paving it. Like maybe we could use leave a construction entrance in, which is going to make it a little bumpy for your fire truck. But it would still be an access that would deter most people from going in there.
Signage, whatnot, yeah.
Yeah, there is the potential to leave like some kind of rumple strip type with
I'll go back to-
stone that would keep the average person in their car from driving in there. Would also limit some of the people. But I mean, the main, you're not coming into Surf City to buy plumbing supplies. You're not coming into Surf City. You're typically going to be coming in and out of the other way. What they're going to be coming into Surf City to do is to eat at McDonald's, to grab lunch or something like that. So we're also limiting our ability for these people to use their businesses.
Yeah, but not to be a fly in the ointment, but I'll get back to my original thing with is a temporary construction road or access road that would be permanent after the construction is done. No, could it be, no, an access road, an emergency access road after the fact that development is built. See, I'm still on the thing of doing away with access to that after this whole thing is done.
Let me try to encapsulate what I think you're asking. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, that's okay. Fire away.
Two questions. One's obviously for you, Chief. The other would be for the applicant. What is that? Do we have a name for that road that we're talking about blocking off, or how are we going to identify that? Just so you'll know what I'm talking about.
It's Loggerhead Boulevard. Yeah, I mean, Loggerhead Boulevard today is stubbed to the property line. This is just the rest of Loggerhead Boulevard.
Take it out to Manhole Road.
It's a future extension of Loggerhead Boulevard.
That's fine. Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Let's just call it that. On the applicant's property.
Yes.
Okay. I think what they're asking is, can we make that an emergency access road only until the first CO is issued? And I would tie it to CO as opposed to someone moving in, because those are two different things.
Okay.
And you can objectively prove when a CO is issued as opposed to when the Jones family moves in. Is that what we're talking about? I just want to...
Well, I've already realized that it probably can't be done permanently, because that's what my intention was, to not have it an access for myself to drive through there, but if the fire chief needs to get through there, there'd be a means to open it and he could get through it, to cut down response time, instead of going all the way down 17 by Lowe's or all the way down to 50 and come in to that development that way. But as far as citizens going and using that road in and out, I'm for not doing that. But
Let me pose a question here for you. If you leave, that's a buffer zone there, roughly, let's say 20 feet. If you leave that buffer zone there and you don't connect that interconnectivity until you have the first CO issued, or until all the traffic coming and going has got to come off of Manhollow Church Road, going in there, which will take care of the traffic problem coming and going. And it should take care of the fire department, because if we don't connect it, and it's built for connectivity, I know what our ordinances and all say, and we will get there when the first CO or whatever it is, but if we didn't have that there and it's left as a greenway space, the only ingress and egress would be through Manhollow Chapel Road at that time. And the fire department can do the same thing they've always done to all that area out there. They'd have to come in and go that way as well. Would that not suffice until you get to the point where you develop out phase one, and then you can connect those things?
So I'd like to give the fire chief a chance to answer after I respond, because ultimately his answer is the one that controls here, not mine.
Right.
But before I do, I want to clarify a couple stages of construction, just so we're all talking about the same sheet of music here. So after approval of a preliminary subdivision plan, which happens at the staff level, the next phase of construction is what I refer to as horizontal construction. This is the big equipment that digs the trenches, puts the pipes in, establishes the fundamental utilities, lays the gravel for the road, concrete for the curbs, and the like. Once that work is complete, then we obtain a final subdivision plat. And after we obtain a final subdivision plat, people can start to build new homes in our community. That's a separate phase of construction. I've referred to that as the vertical phase of construction. And so while I believe that we could and are certainly willing to not connect that public right-of-way until we've completed the horizontal phase of construction, I do not believe that we can agree to do that beyond the horizontal phase of construction and into the vertical, because at that point we will have dedicated that as a public road and a further extension of the public road. And because it's a public road, we can't put a barricade on it. You know, just as any citizen or anybody, citizen or not, can drive on Loggerhead Boulevard today, so will that be the case when we record our final subdivision plat.
So he's correct. Once we start horizontal construction, it can be blocked off, not a problem at all. But once we start vertical construction, we're going to have the quickest access that we can get into that property. And obviously going all the way around would be really extend our response times when really we could drive through the current neighborhood and get to that area once that vertical construction goes up, because that's when the fire hazard begins. And we would just need access, you know, so not connecting the road would be a problem. Having a barrier that we can gain access through until the COs are submitted and approved, that's something that we can work out with the developer. But, you know, once that final plat is made and those people start living there, then that's when that barrier would have to come down, because we're opposed to any kind of gate control on public streets. Any questions? Because there is 2 phases of construction there. I have another question. Kyle, can you come over here, or unless I want to talk to you real quick. So can y'all, I don't know those Turtle Creek people, because this phase 3 through 7 thing is quite intriguing, right? So y'all bought homes in 1 and 2, correct? All you Turtle Creek people, right? Did y'all know about 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 when you bought the homes?
Some did, sir.
I would say most didn't.
There was a model that showed the future of what it was supposed to look like. That's why we're like, okay, the 350, that's made sense because it's like single homes, it's spread out. But they're like, well, no, it's not going to work like that. It's going to be this.
So I'm only playing devil's advocate because you can see I've been doing that all day here, correct? Okay. So, time doesn't change. And not to be rude, circumstances do, but time doesn't change. I'm not being rude about that. So there was 1 through 7 was the plan. You guys bought in 1 through 2. So now they bought where somebody else left off. So they picked up where somebody else left off, and so that's now a conundrum, basically, for everybody. Correct?
Mr. Eisman?
No. Yep. Sorry.
If you're going to speak, can you come up, please?
I'm sorry to be I'm badgering this, but I'm just trying to make sure I have all my facts from everywhere.
I bought 4.5 years ago. I knew that there was a plan, but I knew that the person who did the plan, the company that put that plan forward, was out of business. So I assumed, and perhaps that was my mistake, that there would have to be some kind of new plan, that was defunct because that entity no longer existed.
Right. But in all fairness, too,
and I think probably others did the same thing.
In all fairness, too, just because that person went belly up and a person buys that property doesn't mean that person doesn't get the opportunity for that same plan. I mean, anybody can agree to that owns property at all. That's not an unfair statement. Would you agree?
Again, that's not the scenario that occurred to me. I thought, well, somebody's got to come in and do something different. This is dead now. The developers, if that's my mistake, it's my mistake. And Mr. Helms is shaking his head. It was my mistake.
Yeah, because it was always originally 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's the way it was.
I understand that.
Because you moved there doesn't give a developer the right to develop it.
I understand that. I don't think we understood. I certainly didn't understand that when people acquired the property, they acquired the right to develop that you had already said okay to. That they'd have to come up with something else or come back to you and say, can we still go ahead and do this? That would have been my expectation as a homeowner. Right. So that, just to answer that, and I suspect others might have the
We're glad you're a homeowner in Surf City.
I'm sorry?
We're glad you're a homeowner in Surf City.
So am I, for now.
Thank you.
You will be.
If I could just say one other thing. Mr. Frank talked about the passage of time. None of us could have anticipated the explosion in development in Surf City over that passage of time. So this isn't just people in Turtle Creek looking at this and saying, oh my gosh, well, they're going to do what they would have done anyway. Surf City is a lot different now, not just off Route 210. It's a lot different everywhere than it was 15 years ago.
I agree. Surf City's a lot different than it was 50 years ago.
I was here 35 years ago, and it's a whole lot different.
And you cannot stop growth. Growth is going to come whether we want it or not. People love Pender County, people love North Carolina, people love Surf City. They're going to come. So, but what we can do is look at things with a clear mind and try to come up with a good plan. So what I'm going to ask tonight, is there anyone else that would like to speak on Turtle Creek? Applewood Trace, rezoning.
I just don't understand why it can't be 350. If that
Mr. John, can you come up?
I guess that's my only question now. My only question now is why can't it be 350? You're talking about 399 versus 350, so that's only 49 houses or homes, so why couldn't they, with all their planning, just stop at 350? And if it is, I came here knowing that there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't worry about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if it was 350. But I also have Magnolia Reserve, which is huge and growing. And I also see Waterside, which has now cleared out more area for townhouses. And I don't know, were those in the plans in 2006? If they were, it's not my business. My business isn't about that. My business is about 350 versus 399 and the impact of the schools. And again, maybe back then they didn't know what that'll do to the schools. I just hear about what it's done to the schools. Our schools are rated at a B. And I know, Mr. Fowler, you know, the other schools in this particular county are not getting Bs. And I worry about that B dropping to a C, and then people aren't going to want to move here like they want to move here now. And I just think that's an issue. And I know 49 houses isn't that much different, but it certainly goes back to 2006, where it was 350. And I do know, too, in talking to firemen, they have those gates that are, as soon as the fire truck or a police car comes up with a siren, the gate opens. There's no delay. And that could be done temporarily for the 350 new homes as they build them. And that's not a burden on anybody. It might have to have a slight change of the city council, but they do it in Hanover. They do it in a bunch of other counties that aren't too far off, and I don't think it's that big of a burden for fire or anybody else. The other issue they're going to have these double cars parked on both sides. If you go through our particular neighborhood, there are times when the trash trucks and the fire trucks cannot get through. I can just tell you that right now. And I know the chief has been through the neighborhood, and I know he's seen it. They can't get through because there's nobody enforcing cars parking so close that you can't get through.
I'm assuming that the width of those streets will be wider if we allow street parking.
The pavement width is wider to meet the fire code, and then the parking is on the outside striped. It's not like a subdivision street unstriped and you just park on the sides, yes.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Chad Tompkins, 126 Leyland Way over in Turtle Creek. Just to sum up some of the things that I think I'm gathering this evening, it sounds like the development was built for 350 homes, which is already approved. Basically, I feel like the development is paying for an extra 50 homes by giving a water treatment facility and an RV and boat area where possibly they can park and Turtle Creek may be able to park as well. So there's a couple concessions I feel like they're making. And then for us, getting a couple of things as well as the town. One concern I do have, I just put my daughter into school today, and there's 2 portables that were given to the school recently to house the students they already have. So with 200 more students being put into that school system, we have 5 years to figure out that problem. And that seems like something that we have to take into consideration. I don't know where that leads in the future, but it is a 5-year problem that we're going to have to figure out. Am I correct about the 50 homes, and then we're giving the town extra water treatment facility? Thank you.
Sure, glad to respond to that briefly. That's certainly part of it. Part of the change in the plan is 49 more homes and a commitment to spend $5+ million by the developer to build public infrastructure. There's also an acknowledgement that, as we just discussed, times have changed. 17, 18 years later, the needs of the community, the housing needs of the community aren't the same as they were 17 or 18 years ago. And we believe that we've proposed and design practices have improved. We believe that we propose something here that's objectively better and offers a more desirable diversity of housing options than are contemplated on the by right plan.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Madam Mayor, since no one else would like to speak at the public hearing, I'd like to make a motion we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion to close public hearing.
Madam Mayor, before you begin deliberations, if there is a motion, there's some additional conditions that have been discussed and agreed to by the applicant that are not in the agenda packet. The first and probably the simplest one is that any proposed approval would incorporate the site plan, and all constructions would be in accordance with the site plan. Mr. Collier discussed some signage and gates with respect, I think that was a staging yard or something like that. Is that right? I guess my point is, we need all those ironed out. We can agree to them all we want to in here, but if they're not ironed out and we're on the same page, it's going to wreak havoc down the road. So
Understood, sir. And
let me start with Mr. Frank. Site plan's going to be incorporated. That's what you're asking for, to build pursuant to the site plan.
Yes, as is typical, I would say materially consistent with the site plan, if that's acceptable to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Mr. Collier, you said you could locate what was discussed regarding signage. Yeah, if you want to read that.
I'd be happy to, sir.
So could you do it slow enough so Madam Clerk can get it down verbatim?
I'll do my best. And this came from my submittal to the town on just a narrative of what was happening. So one of the things that we talked about was construction traffic may access all public streets to ingress and egress Applewood Trace, subject to heavy equipment and deliveries would ingress and egress via U.S. Highway 17 and Edgecombe Road. Light-duty vehicles and deliveries would use NC Highway 210 and Loggerhead Boulevard for ingress and egress. Signs would be posted on each access location to aid in controlling the construction traffic, and the hours of operation would be included in the signage.
One second, Mr. Collins. Do you want to repeat anything? Can you repeat that one more time slowly?
Yes, sir. All right. So construction traffic may access all public streets for ingress and egress to Applewood Trace. Then part A to that would be heavy equipment and deliveries would ingress and egress via US 17 and Edgecombe Road, and not Loggerhead, to make it perfectly clear. But light-duty vehicles and deliveries would use NC Highway 210 and Loggerhead Boulevard for ingress and egress. And then we would post signs on each access location to aid in controlling construction traffic, and we would post the hours of operation on that signage.
I think didn't we modify some of that? Okay.
Yes, we did. And then we did talk about having.
Do you mind if I go down my list first?
Sure.
Because it may be. Right. So we talked about some during phase of horizontal construction for phase one, not making the connection to Loggerhead Boulevard on the applicant's side of the property.
I think the way I'd choose to phrase that, subject to your thoughts, is the applicant will maintain a physical barrier at the Loggerhead Road stub at the property boundary until such time as the applicant is prepared to submit a final subdivision plan for phase one for approval. And that way you cover everything leading up to that time as well. You know, we've got a fence there now. You'll get a commitment from us to keep it there. We have to take it down when it's time to dedicate the road as public, but we can leave it up until then.
All right. Chief, you don't have to come up here. Is that, you're good with that? Okay, all right, thank you.
Madam Clerk, did you follow me, or do I need to reiterate any of that? Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Collar, those are, what Mr. Frank just said kind of condensed 2 or 3 bullet points I had, so what was your understanding of any additional conditions?
The only, on mine, the only thing that I discussed was heavy equipment versus light duty. That were the only 2 distinctions. And if we're putting up a fence and it's going to stay closed, then
No, we should
have the distinction, correct?
Yes, because after the final subdivision plat for Phase 1 is complete, the condition that Mr. Collier described should still apply.
Right, to keep the heavier traffic off.
Correct, yes, sir.
So can we call those for purposes of ease, conditions 11, 12, and 13? 11 being
Material compliance with the site plan?
Yeah. 12 being the
Signage and direction regarding construction traffic?
and 13 is keeping the gate up, not opening until final.
Have to be shortly before we pursue final subdivision approval, because we can't get final subdivision approval with the fence in place for Phase 1.
Ms. Kimes, do you have any? Ms. Kimes, do you have any questions regarding? Yeah, or any clarification or anything? Okay. Okay, Madam Mayor, Council, is there any? Some of these conditions were based on questions from the council. I'm not saying you've asked for them. Questions were presented. The applicant offered to accept. While we're discussing potential conditions, are there any other
I was,
clarifications?
I just want to clarify that the leftover open space would be used for repair area only. The leftover open space will always be used for repair area.
You talk about the green space outlined, not all open space, but that particular area.
Yes. It was 49 acres.
So, Mr. Price, is it understood that that's needed for the system we're contemplating, or?
Under current ordinance it is, yes.
Okay, got it.
Deeded to the town.
That's fine.
It would be deeded to the town?
Yes.
You want title to it?
Of course. Why not?
Okay. Give me a second.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I would say that.
Right. Madam Mayor, I don't understand this well enough to answer your question. Can I consult with Mr. Price just for a minute or two?
Sure.
Talk it through?
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mayor, can we take a recess while they do that?
Absolutely.
Get your gavel. Get your gavel.
We're going to come out of recess here, and I think when we left off, we were talking about the site that had the 49 acres being an easement, or as far as turning over to Surf City.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, we already have, as a proposed condition under number 10, that the developer will install the force main, et cetera, et cetera. I would request, after speaking with staff and the applicant, that we add a sentence to that, to the effect that developer will provide a perpetual easement for all acreage, help me, Price, for a perpetual easement for a repair area as required. I would just say as required by any law, state, federal.
Yes, sir. Well, this particular permit's covered by North Carolina, but yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And would that be a floating, we're not going to limit that to one particular site on the site?
There's only 2 sites available for this that are suitable. The subsurface field in the middle of the multi-purpose, and the undeveloped land in the north corner there, which I call the repair area. That's only 2 pieces of land that are suitable per the soil test.
And are we going to limit that, though, to the 49 acres of undeveloped land?
In my opinion, you should not. You should keep the onus on us, as it is, to deliver anything and everything required by applicable law to deliver the system.
Just to concur, like I said, Applewood Trace, if approved, will be running all kinds of water and sewer lines all through the neighborhood. Those will also need easements as well. So we don't want to limit it to, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves until we have.
And forgive me, Mr. Attorney, I just want to clarify.
Call me Brian if you like.
Thank you. We're not saying that the law requires such today. We're saying that to the extent required by applicable law, these things will be.
So applicant shall convey to the town any and all easements as may be required by law with respect to the water and sewer infrastructure improvements.
That sounds good to me.
I wish I could repeat what I just said, but I just.
And all easements that pertain to water and sewer infrastructure.
So existing condition 10 would have additional sentence, applicant shall convey to town any and all easements as may be required by law with respect to the wastewater and water infrastructure improvements.
Yes, sir.
You fine with that?
They are, in fact, all wastewater as opposed to water, but I am fine with it.
We need to keep the water in there, you're going to water lines and easements too as well.
Fair enough. I would also, in response to the comments that generated this, I would like to say very clearly for the record, for everybody in the room, the site plan depicts that 49 acres in the upper right corner of the property as undeveloped land. The site plan is incorporated into this zoning approval if you approve it tonight. What that means is that we or any future landowner cannot develop that property without changing the zoning. Someone would have to come back through this process and before this board if they ever wanted to change it, and we acknowledge that and understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, do you want to go over the list of amendments?
Well, we have 1 through 10, or the conditions actually, 1 through 10 as found in the staff report. And folks, I apologize for my voice. In addition, we have a 11th amendment that this is a site-specific conditional zoning request, and the site-specific plan as depicted in the March 2023 conditional zoning submittal shall be substantially complied with respect to all construction depicted on that plan. Then we had a signage and agreement as to heavy equipment and deliveries. And, I mean, I didn't write all that down. Madam Clerk has that down. Applicant shaking his head, yes. And then applicant has agreed to maintain a physical barrier at the juncture, which will ultimately be the Logger Road connection until such time as they apply for final subdivision plan approval?
Yes, sir.
Those are the ones I have.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the zoning ordinance 1 through, with the 1 through 10 and the 11 through 14.
13.
13 also in that, and the 49 acres is still designated as undeveloped area, correct? That's my motion.
And would that motion include the modification to condition 10 with that last sentence we just discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
In that case, I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Mayor, before I vote, I want to say something. Is that possible, please?
Sure.
So I obviously came in with one thought. I gained a couple thoughts. More than $5 million in infrastructure for the town. I'm looking at the good for the town. I'm looking at what's good for the citizens. I believe that you guys are meeting every condition. I think everything we throw at you, you want to do and handle, which is quite odd. Stoplights will solve some problems, some issues for safety issues, and this phase 3 through 7 has been in the work for 15 years. So I'm less prone today to believe there's a safety issue for our citizens today, and a yes vote.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is a majority. Everyone has voted yes. The motion carries to rezone the property at Applewood Trace.
Okay. Madam Mayor, before we move on to the next item, I'd like, if you don't mind, Mr. Frank, to take the lectern.
Yes, sir.
I just want the applicant to go on record that they agree with the 13 conditions as we've discussed here tonight.
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Economic Development Agreement. And this is Brian Eads.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated in the draft agreement, North Carolina General Statute 158-7.1, as well as Chapter 160D, allows towns to enter into development agreements with economic incentives if the governing board finds certain things, such as there's an increase in population, taxable property, employment opportunities, business prospects, etc. Staff has been working with the landowner regarding a potential development agreement with economic incentives, particularly with respect to the significant wastewater infrastructure improvements. I believe staff's prepared to recommend, y'all forgive me, we enter into this agreement, and unless there's any questions of me, I'll turn it over to Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Eads. Before we use the economic agreement with Turtle Creek Ventures, staff has been working on this agreement for the last several months, going back and forth. The main reason we did this was to answer the concerns from the public. One of the ones they raised was a wastewater plant being within a residential neighborhood. The plan has been removed from the plan and is facilitated by this agreement. Also, there was concern about a private party or HOA maintaining the town infrastructure. That has been a problem in the past, not only in this neighborhood, but many others. This makes it so all infrastructure becomes town property. Some of the benefits outlined in Article 1 of the agreement, the benefits are outlined in Article 1 of the agreement, but some of the ones that are not listed but are referenced in other portions of the agreement is the town will collect $4,867,000, $60,800 in system development fees, of which $3,670,800 will be paid before the construction of the first home. An additional anticipated capacity of 56,360 gallons per day of extra wastewater disposal after the needs of the project are complete will be allocated to the town. A pipeline from the wastewater treatment plant to Applewood Trace will be sized to contribute to our future projects we have planned. Based on a recent bid from a similar project, Surf City is projecting the infrastructure work outlined to be in the agreement to exceed the economic incentive offered. All these above listed, I just did a quick calculation. All the above listed benefits equate to a net future earnings or savings to ratepayers of town of more than $10 million. One of the conditions in the agreement is complete the Turtle Creek Ventures to, one of the agreement, I should have typed this better, I apologize. Once all the conditions of the agreement are complete, Turtle Creek Ventures will receive an incentive pay of $3.6 million. The improvements are listed in section 5.5, but they also include construction of our infrastructure improvements will begin within 3 years. Within 3 years, they have to break ground. Within 5 years, the subsurface system has to be up and operational. They cannot get COs before that is operational. It can't happen per the agreement. 17,500 linear foot of 8-inch force main running from Sarge Martin wastewater plant to Applewood Trace, and a 200,000 gallon per day subsurface disposal field to include all apparatus such as lift stations and dosing tanks. Like I mentioned before, Turtle Creek Ventures will not be able to obtain any COs or certificate of occupancy until all infrastructure outlined in the agreement is complete. And like you said, that's the general bullet points. If you have any questions about the agreement, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, so we're going to open up the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and ask questions concerning the economic development agreement?
Madam Mayor, seeing no one, I'd like to make a motion we close the public hearing.
Before we do that, can I just ask Mr. Frank, do you have a copy of the development agreement?
I do.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you've got it memorized, hats off to you. I don't.
I do.
Page 5, section 5.6.1, very last sentence referring to developers offer of dedication of the infrastructure improvements to the town and the conveyance of all associated public utility easements to the town.
Yes, sir.
In light of our last item on the agenda regarding easements as may be required by law for a repair area, do you have any objections to including at least a parenthetical there to describe that?
I do not. We're obligated to do it by the zoning condition, so certainly glad to repeat it here if you like.
That's what I was hoping you would say. Thank you, Mr. Frank. That's all I had.
Yes, sir.
I'll second the motion that was made.
Part of that motion was to approve the economic development agreement with the change in section 6.1.1 to read that the incentive payment be taken from the enterprise fund, not the general fund.
I second that.
Well, and could you add to that to that motion?
Okay.
It's the modifications of section 5.6.1 as described by the town attorney and agreed to by the developers council.
I will add that to that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the economic development agreement.
Audit is up next, is that right?
All right, moving right along. Item number 3 out of 13. The audit presentation of the fiscal year of 2022 and 2023. Thank you for being patient.
What was that?
Thank you for being patient.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, good evening. I'm here to present the audit for June 30th, 2023. The good news here, and this will be brief, this was a good audit. We issued an unmodified audit opinion, also referred to as a clean audit. There was also a compliance audit, and there were no compliance findings, and we also were required to test internal controls, and there were no internal control findings. New this fiscal year, you had a new finance director. She did a great job. We got the audit completed by the October 31st deadline, which is extremely important. It just signals the books are ready to be audited. So staff provided full access to records. We didn't have any disagreements with the staff or management. There were no new accounting policies adopted. We did not consult with other auditors in our opinion. A couple of notes on internal controls. There were no segregation of duties issues. We had no issues with the budget. And really, your finance director, she was new. There's 20 funds to deal with. It's a lot of funds to sort out. And she did a great job overall, so I think it's very promising for the town. A couple of key financial trends before we go to the graphs. Overall, the financial trends were extremely strong for this fiscal year. When we issue the audit to the local government commission each year, they review it, and if there's any financial indicators that are negative, they'll stand out. So the town had no financial indicators of concern, which is extremely positive there. Total net townwide net position was $115 million at June 30th, 2023. That's an increase of $15 million. General fund added $851,000. The water and wastewater fund added $2.8 million to fund balance. And just notable, the American Recovery Act money was $393,000 this fiscal year. Any questions? All right, let's go to the graphs, and we'll get this done. I'm going to kill Kyle for not putting me first. Anyway,
it's 1 versus
I had
40.
my presentation was more dynamic in my head before sitting this long. All right, the first one is fund balance for the general fund. And as most of you are probably aware, the general fund, most of these trends are going to be pretty strong for the last 10 fiscal years, which I heard that over the last couple hours. So general fund increased by $851,000. So this is the highest general fund balance in the last 10 years. So economic growth factors have been strong, and general fund has just, done really well in the last 10 fiscal years. Let's go to the next one. This is your number of months in reserve for the general fund. Kind of think of emergency fund. So as a percentage, you're at 78%, which is about 9 months in reserve. That's your unassigned fund balance in general fund. The minimum percentage of municipalities of similar size is 25%, and the average is 46%. So you're at 78%, so you're above average and well above the minimum requirement. All right, let's go to the next one. Cash all funds. And at June 30th, 2023, you're at $61 million. That's a $13.8 million increase, also very strong here and historically relative to the last 10 fiscal years. Next one, outstanding debt by fiscal year, also positive, just trending downward. You can see June 30th, 2023, you're at just under $13 million. Next one, water and sewer net position, also very positive. I mentioned earlier, $2.8 million increase for this fiscal year. So nothing, everything's positive about all these graphs. So property tax collection for this fiscal year, $7.7 million. That's the increase of about $1 million from the previous fiscal year. Next page, property tax collection, highest in the last 10 years at 99%, pretty close to previous fiscal years as well. So in summary, clean audit, no findings, financial records were in good shape, financial trends are strong, and it was a pretty smooth audit overall from our perspective. Any questions?
Do I have any questions?
I just want to thank him for his time, and it's glad to hear we got a great manager and a great finance officer and great tax collectors, you can see, and I think the town's in good shape and all the departments have been doing their job, but it's nice to see it on paper.
Thank you. So at this time, it's requested that the town council consider approval of the audit as presented. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The audit presentation is approved.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for being number 3.
Thank you too, Melissa. Number 4, springtime paving project. Chris Carter.
Right, buddy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So I have been working with Kyle and Alonzo from DOT to put together a springtime paving project. Alonzo, he has put everything out. He has got some estimates back, and for what we'll be doing is the project will include Tortuga Lane, Sand Court, Shell Court, Island Court, Sound Court, East Ridge, 6th Street, Oak Drive, Sea Manor Drive, and Sandy Lane. The project estimate is $247,160.50. Today, I am asking for approval to move forward with the paving project.
Does anyone have any questions?
I make a motion that he go forward.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The springtime paving project is approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you. David Price, looks like you're in the hot seat for the next several items.
Get all this while he's up here.
And Madam Mayor and Council, I will say that we talked about trying to lump a few of these together as they're related, and then, yes, all these items, even though work session, we are seeking votes and approvals for.
Okay. All right, David.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, items 5, 6, and 7 are all related. I do believe they need a separate vote, so if I'm not mistaken. But before you, number 5 is the water treatment plant disposal, Phase 2. And what this does is town's been working hard to find an alternative disposal site, not only to gain sewer capacity, but to come up with a more ecologically friendly alternative to dispose of our byproduct from the water treatment processes. We did receive an NPD discharge permit from the state earlier this year. What this amendment to the contract does is it pays for the design and permitting of the pipeline to get us to bid out. So what I'd like is possibly, if there's no further questions, a vote on number 5 to accept the contract, a vote on number 6 to move money for Fund 71, and vote on number 7, move money for Fund 30.
Right. So at this time, it is requested that the town consider approval for the addendum as presented for the waste treatment plant disposal Phase 2 expansion addendum.
Yes. I make a motion or to approve 5, then we'll approve 6, and then we can approve 7.
Let's take them one at a time.
Yep. Item number 5, Don made a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Item number 5, wastewater plant disposal Phase 2 expansion is approved. Item number 6, it is requested that the town council consider approval of the budget ordinance amendment as presented. The budget ordinance amendment, Public Utilities Fund 71.
I'll make a
Motion
motion.
to
Go ahead.
approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the Public Utilities Fund 71. Item number 7, it is requested the town council consider approval of the budget ordinance amendment as presented. Public Utilities Fund 30.
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried to approve the Public Utilities Fund 30.
I appreciate that, Mayor. Item number 8 is the subsurface Phase 1 bid award. You'll see a resolution with the bid tabulation in your package. Subsurface Phase 1 is a expansion that gains us 150,000 gallons of disposal capacity at the Juniper Swamp. This was bid out about 2 weeks ago. We received bids on the second time bidding out, and the low bidder was EOJ Inc. I recommend the adoption of the submitted resolution.
I'll make a motion. I second.
Motion was made and seconded to move forward with the subsurface Phase 1 a bid award. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries subsurface Phase 1 bid award.
Appreciate that, Mayor. Number 9, number 10, number 11 are also linked. Number 9 is a contract to expand our master plan. As council may know, we've been working on a master plan to get us to the year 2040 with the town's infrastructure needs. With the passage of House Bill 571, we do have another option that we are looking to research. I do have some good news on that. The state did accept our environmental documentation from the original upgrade for 3 MGD. That shaves about 2 years off the time frame. As such, the engineers are eager to put this into effect. So what this does is it adds HB 571 to the master plan study and gets us to a discharge permit at Juniper Swamp. I recommend approval of the contract.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the master plan addendum. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried to approve the master plan addendum.
And items number 10, number 11 are the same. They're budget amendments to move money to fund the new amendment. Recommend budget ordinance amendment for Public Utilities Fund 84.
I make a motion we approve the as requested.
I have a motion and a second to approve the budget ordinance amendment, Public Utilities Fund 84. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the budget ordinance amendment, Public Utilities Fund 84.
Thank you, Council. And number 11 is the same situation, budget order amendment. Public Utilities Fund 72 is also goes to pay for this expansion.
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
A motion was made and a second to approve the budget ordinance amendment, Public Utilities Fund 72. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion is approved to approve the budget ordinance amendment, Public Utilities Fund 72.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Don't go far.
Yeah.
Kyle's got number 12, the shore stormwater budget amendment.
Somehow this one got plugged in between prices. Thank you for yielding the floor. This is to readjust our General Fund 10 budget for the South Shore Stormwater Project. As you all know, we've seen 17% increase in cost with this project due to inflation, which is consistent with our utility price index. Additionally, we realized the scope and complexity of the project increased beyond initial estimations. We'd like to be able to use funds to procure a contracted construction management services to ensure proper oversight and coordination, working between the town, DOT, and the contractor that you all approved last month. So that's what this budget ordinance amendment is to cover, so we can get that project completed.
I make a motion, we approve the Shore Stormwater Budget Amendment as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Shore Stormwater Budget Amendment. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the Shore Stormwater Budget Amendment. Item number 13 is the Budget Ordinance Amendment for Public Utilities Fund 54.
May I have 2 minutes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. This is the second portion of the prior budget ordinance amendment. Sorry, the utilities fund was throwing me off. This is general fund, Fund 54, so appropriating the money and then putting it into the project. Okay. Put it into stormwater. Sorry about that.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the Budget Ordinance Amendment, Public Utilities Fund 54, and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the Budget Ordinance Amendment, Public Utilities Fund 54. Item number 14 is the 2024 meeting calendar and holidays. All I need here is just a consensus that everybody agrees.
And these are the calendars at the back of the packet for next year's meeting dates.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
You said I like a Hugh.